The views and opinions expressed by the host and our guests does not state or reflect Tuda personally or the Life is Good with Tuda show. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Life is Good with Tuda podcast. Still in Tulsa. Still, I have so many family members. Okay, remember? My immediate family. So I have my brother / nephew. A little confusing, right? And so he's raising my baby brother, but he's actually my nephew. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself, but, we have the nuance of the name we talked about in my first show. So introduce yourself and then tell us what we named you versus what your government name is, okay?
I am Orrick Watkins.
No, you gotta say your middle name.
Orrick Lamont Watkins. The oldest of, her nieces and nephews. So the brother part comes is that, my mother had me at a young age, at 16. And so with that, I grew up the same way as everybody else did. So
same household.
Same household, everything else.
Same discipline, same work.
Right, same discipline, same roof, so all the things. So the dynamics of it is, of course I have a biological mother, but my grandmother was more like my mom as well too. So even till this day, 38 years later, I'm still saying mama, and both of them turn around like, no, not you, I'm talking to you. And so everybody looks at it as confusing, but those who've been around me understand and know, that's your grandma.
That's a family dynamic right there that you just have to know. And so another thing about that too, who named? We talked about names. And so who named you?
My grandfather, who I also called Daddy as well.
Yeah.
So both my grandmother and grandfather both played a dual role in my life. Again, they are my grandparents, but I consider them as my mother and father. Especially even with my grandfather, anything that had to deal with male testosterone, any other things, I also followed behind him and relied on his guidance to get me there. So my grandfather named me since I was the first grandchild Orrick, and he wanted it to be something different, not common, no Mark, Paul, James. It wanted to be something different, and so Orrick is actually how it came out. And so with that, as she's talked about the family dynamics, our family's initials are RLW.
Yes.
And it follows behind my grandfather. And so while, again, my aunts and uncles, being young in age, they thought it was only right that, okay, he's going to have an R name. But my grandfather was like, no, he's going to be something different. I want his name to be Orrick. And so they fought it. And from birth, even how I spell it, Orrick, people who I went to school with think I just rearranged Orrick and just got the name that that both I call my siblings / aunts and uncles. They named me Rico. Now I have an understanding from that some of them wanted it to be Ricardo and some other our names, but everybody kind of settled in on Rico. So to this day, I could have a phone conversation with someone, and the minute that they meet me, when they hear the name Rico, I step out the car and they're expecting, a Hispanic or Puerto Rican or something, and they're like, "Oh, you're Rico." Like, yes,
and how tall are you?
I am 6'6".
So definitely, and so to follow that dynamic, we call him Rico Lamont Watkins, but my dad hardly ever. I don't know if I ever heard him call you Rico.
Nope.
He only called him Orrick.
Yep.
Only call him Orrick. And so I don't know if I call you Orrick now more than Rico, I think. And I don't know if that's just because I know that's my dad's intentions. But even when I text you, say Orrick,
Right.
And it just comes naturally for me.
Yeah.
Even though I know the Rico, we have a tendency in our family dynamic, to name people's kids what we think they should be named.
Yep.
And so they end up having
these
multiple
nicknames.
names.
These nicknames come about, even from what she's talking about. Ricky, Rodria, another aunt, she calls me O, which you can play off of Rico or Orrick, either or. But Veronica, Tuda, if you go down the line, everybody has a different nickname, and it's so funny with a lot of us. It even confused my wife with all the names, because she thought Tuda was actually Tuda, but for some people to call her Ronica, she was like, well, who's that? Well, it's actually the same person. So that part of the dynamics of everybody having different names can be confusing from the outsider.
And I'll tell you, Robert was a little confused, a little bit, when he met, and everybody was saying Tuda. He had to explain to his mom and sister, oh, that's her nickname, because they was trying to figure out, Tuda, who's Tuda? Yeah. And so, it's interesting about how that comes about. But what about your oldest son? What's his name based on what his aunts have named him? What's his real name?
Well, so let's back that up. So even my name, Orrick, as I've gotten older, I ran from it for the longest. And so knowing those who know me by Rico, but if you even went to elementary or something with me, you knew me by Orrick. Well, Orrick has its meaning, and so my grandfather, as Tuda explained previously in another episode, he was big on you valuing and representing your name. And so yes. Orrick means wise age oak. And so from that, in itself, those who know me, those who've been around me, people tend to gravitate to me and pluck words of wisdom, understanding, even just to be an ear for their various issues or whatever. And so I've kind of, taken that as a token of, pride, that Orrick means wise age oak. So if you know me by Rico, but here I am as Orrick Lamont Watkins.
Orrick Lamont. And so if somebody say, or if Daddy said Orrick Lamont,
sometimes that tends to mean I did something wrong, and he's trying to get my attention.
Orrick Lamont.
Yeah.
So when he says that, it's on one way or the other.
Right.
So no, I wanted them to share. What does she call your son?
You talking about
one of your aunts?
So you have. So Deanna would be Scrum. So Reed Watkins is my son, but they call him Royale.
What's his middle name?
Lyndon.
So
I tried to follow behind the RLW, and to kind of give a caveat to that, I have 4 children: Riley, Reed, and then I have a set of twins, Tyler and Trenton. Well, once I got down to the twins, I was running out of our names, and so I said, you know what, they're twins, let's just do something different, and we went with the T's. But my oldest two, Riley, who's 17, will be 18 pretty soon.
So give her full name.
Riley Leanne Watkins, another RLW, and then my oldest son, Reed Lyndon Watkins. His name is Reed, but of course one of my aunts calls him Royale.
Right.
Where it comes from, I have no understanding of where it comes from.
Family dynamics, right there.
Right.
Family dynamics.
Right.
So I wanted Rico Orrick to sit down with me. He's very gifted, and some of the things that he and I have had these long conversations within the last couple of years. Yeah. His sons, he has some very talented kids. And so Robert and I have seen, you're going to be looking out for Reed, definitely. He is going to be someone to reckon with on I don't know which one. Robert and I enjoyed seeing him baseball.
It's starting to push towards baseball.
Yeah.
I don't want him to just let it be all eggs in one basket. And so I think that the fact that he knows that I don't push him as hard in baseball as I do in football.
Right.
I don't want him to give it up, even though he's kind of like taking off in baseball, only because who knows
right.
What situations or opportunities come for you. So I still have him pushing for both baseball and football. But it's funny because he played basketball 2 years ago, didn't play last year. Well, this year I don't know if it's something about the teammates he played with in football, they're playing basketball now he loves basketball, so he's like, can I just do baseball and basketball? I'm like, hold up dude, you're not coordinated enough in basketball to do that. I can stick with baseball, but we'll get you back on this football field out here, buddy.
How tall is Reed?
Reed, so he's 11, even though he looks like he's about 15. If to look at Reed and to know he's only 11 years old and he's a gentle giant, to see me come around the corner, they're like, oh, we get it. We see why you're
Don't they
talking.
Question how
They
old
do.
he is?
They do. But until they see him talk, and you'll see these real soft spoken and kind of, again, he's just a gentle giant.
Right.
The sweetest of hearts, whatever. But I'll still kind of jack him up. But
you have to. So
got to keep him grounded. Got to keep him grounded. Got to keep him grounded.
It's really important. So you have really gifted kids. But one thing I really kind of want to talk about, well, you're gifted too in a lot of areas. So one thing I want to talk about, we've talked about Black mentorship.
Gotcha.
And so you're really big on teaching skills to the young men, not just African American, but just the young men, just basic skills.
Right.
And you have training camps and trainings
Right.
that you put on for the different kids.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm really proud of, and no one told you to do it, I think you just evolved based on what's going on in the climate of the world. You guys are moving back to North Tulsa, right? North Tulsa, predominantly Black. I don't know if it still is it?
It is, but you see some of the changes that's going on around there. Some of it may be a little gentrification, but I mean, other than that, it still holds its fair share of families that when I grew right, low income. I would say low income to probably middle class families that still live predominantly within North Tulsa.
Okay, so what you're doing with your family, and I'm going to have you back again, I know, because you and I have kind of discussed there's a lot of things that we want to talk about. One of the ones I'm throwing out there is you're a coach and you went back to your middle school. Right. And this year you coached them. Yeah. And it was an experience for you because it's different than when you were there.
It is. And part of, I think, what you're stating is the mentoring part. I think I had to look at it as within my generation, and of course being raised by my biggest of families. I felt as if though I had a little bit of that old school mixed with the new school, and so seeing how things were starting to change and turn to for my generation, I was like, somebody needs to hold this mantle for how things used to be, and so kind of give it spin on it. And so the mentoring part came as far as with my kids, they was going to get a little bit of that tough love, but also break them down to turn around and pick them back up. And so me mentoring not only my children, it ended up being their friends and teammates and of all colors and races. That it was something that I took pride in. It was actually kind of fun to have a kid who didn't understand their left from their right, didn't understand the intricate parts of just what was something that I took as something that really was my calling, and I kind of just went forward with that.
So how did your team do this first year?
So our first year, we finished I think 6-2.
6-2.
6-2. We lost to the same team, Sand Springs, who after finding out they've been together since the 4th grade. Okay. And Sand Springs in itself is a small city, kind of blue collar. Any and everything that goes on within Sand Springs growing up, same kids, same families, and so they kind of grind together. So that game and those games in itself was pretty tough, and a lot of those kids knew each other, knew kind of what the coach was expecting from them, and just really kind of executed from there. My toughest struggle with it all was more so of taking kids. I actually had kids from 6th grade through 8th grade playing against 8th graders. So the challenge in itself, you got a 6th grader lining up, you have a 85-pound 6th grader lining up against a 125-pound 8th grader.
So they play all together now?
That's what I had to deal with.
So 6th, 8th, and 9th are playing in one? 6th,
7th, and 8th grade together. We formulated one team and had to play against 8th graders the whole season and only lost 2 games.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So I know we're going to get a hand clap right there. That's going to be a hand clap. Because I will follow you on Facebook on some of the things that you were saying and what you were doing with the group. So I thought that was great. I
have to give it, when you, the form of flattery comes when you try to imitate, a little bit of what you've seen. And so I'm not gonna lie, I've watched Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, and his marketing tactics, and I just I'm trying to create change, trying to steer the ship back to how things used to be, and try to bring in some more energy, dollars, all the above. And so that's just everything that I could push out and plug out for the school and for my program and everything else. That's what I try to do.
That's on the north side of Tulsa.
Yes.
T-Town,
yes.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with our guest on the Life is Good with Tuda show.